Welcome to Actuary Voices, a podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. I'm your host, David Nolan, the Academy's Director of Communications. Today, as we near the end of Women's History Month, I'm in conversation with Amber Rohde, co-founder and president of the Network of Actuarial Women and Allies. Amber, welcome. I'm delighted to have you on the show.
Thanks, David. Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Great. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, you already introduced me. I'm Amber Rohde. I'm a fellow of the Casualty Actuarial Society. As a member of the CAS, I have a few things going on. I'm an active volunteer for my society, and also I was elected to the board of directors for the CAS last year, so it was a big year for me. I am also a founding member of the Network of Actuarial Women and Allies, which is known to many as NAWA, as well as the nonprofit's first and current board president. So in regards to my work life...
Do you have time for that?
Do you? I don't have any time for that. That's funny. I've been in the P&C insurance industry for nearly 20 years, and I've had experience across multiple states and countries. And in my day job, just to clarify, as you alluded to, I lead the Actuarial and Advanced Analytics team within this is a mouthful, Enterprise Catastrophe Risk Management Group of Travelers.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And
Does that
actually,
fit on the business card, or do you no longer do business cards?
I haven't had one of those for a while.
Right.
We call ourselves ECAT for short. There you go. But on top of all that, too, David, I am a wife and a mother to a 7-year-old and a 13-month-old. So as you said, my life's definitely busy, but I think it's all good, all wonderful ways. And I just want to say I'm happy to be here to celebrate International Women's Day and International History Month with you in the Academy.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for joining us for that. We are talking towards the end of Women's History Month, and it's very appropriate that we are discussing the Network of Actuarial Women and Allies, or what I often try and say is the National Association of Women Actuaries, but I always correct myself quickly. Same letters, different meaning. And I suggest we go talk about NAWA later on in our conversation. But what I'd like to do is give people a sense of why our guests on Actuary Voices become actuaries. What motivates? What led you to this particular career path?
Yeah, I think my path is probably different than others too. So it's a good question. Thank you. So actually, I'm going to go back. I grew up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, in a suburb, the Twin Cities, called Eagan, in Minnesota, I should clarify for those that don't know. And I currently live in Connecticut, but I also spent about 5 years living overseas in London. So I've moved around quite a bit in my career and life, but I just want to say I'm a Minnesotan at heart, which basically means I'm okay wearing flip-flops and shorts in 40-degree weather to others. Yeah, I say you laugh. I am just kidding. Actually, I'll be honest. I've spent 10 years away from Minnesota, and I'm completely softened and an absolute wimp now. But where I'm going with this, I'm digressing. I went to the Carlson School of Management at the University of Minnesota, and that's not a heavily math-focused school. It is a business school.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a bachelor's of science in business. I did have majors in actuarial science and risk management insurance, but I will be very clear, I was not a math student, apart from all the math classes.
Apart from that small thing, yes.
Right, but it wasn't my focus. I was a business student, and I took a very different path than I think most of the other actuarial students that I encountered along the way were taking. So how I ended up in actuarial itself, I would say it was a bit of a broken path.
Mm.
So basically, I knew I was good at math in high school. I didn't show that to everybody. I may have hid it a little bit because it wasn't the cool thing at times, but I was good at math. And as college was approaching, I started to think about what I might want to do. So I got into this good business school, as I mentioned, and my father attended that school. And my father, being my vision for what success looked like, I just assumed I would follow in his footsteps. I would major in finance, this is all easy, right? I would major in
Yeah.
finance. I'd aim for CFO. I'd own my own business.
Uh
Super easy.
huh.
Simple. No, obviously that's not simple, but I
Well, he made
really,
it look simple, I presume.
he made it look easy. My grandfather did the same
Uh huh.
thing. I started to feel a little bit overwhelmed with that idea. Um, Not because of the easy or hard thing, but really it just didn't necessarily seem like something I'd want.
Mm.
But also, I didn't know of any women who had done the same thing at the same time.
Hmm.
So it's not that that didn't exist. Obviously, that existed. It's just that when you're trying to create this vision of who you want to be or you could be, it's hard when you don't see people like yourself demonstrating it, especially when you're young, right?
Hmm.
And you're not
Sure.
really sure what your future or many futures look like. So, anyway, it was around that time that my dad, this is kind of funny, my dad said that both him and my grandfather had wanted to be actuaries, but they said the testing process was just too long and too hard.
Uh huh.
Um, and I honestly didn't even know what an actuary was.
You
But
weren't alone.
yeah, not many know at that age. Um, but I was very competitive, and so I sort of wanted to take one of the exams just to say, "Haha, Dad, I beat you at it." Um, and that was the relationship we had. We were just that way with each other.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to digress, but we once went to Hawaii, and we went, on the top of that mountain, and on Maui. And I remember we both went to the top, but he stood secretly next to me on a rock that was a little bit higher. So then when we got to the bottom of the mountain, he said, "Well, you were 2,300, I'm going to butcher this, 2,634 feet. And I was 2,635 feet, just to let you know." So that's me and my dad.
I like your dad already.
Yeah, it's bad. But we have fun. So anyway, I thought, oh, what is this actuary thing? And I shared the idea with a friend, and he explained that his mother was an actuary
Mm.
and he'd be happy to introduce me. So I went to work. I went to her work,
Hmm.
and she was wonderful. I have a special place for her in my heart still, I have to say. It was just incredible to see this highly successful woman. And she was so good at math and business. She was the boss. She had seen the world through her work. She talked about traveling, which is a passion of mine. She was happy. And I realized, yeah, you know, I could see myself doing this. And it making it sound easy. It turned out as I studied it and other subjects in college, it was a good fit for me. And it really was, I'd say, the perfect combination of math, business, and creative problem solving. Um, and I also feel that I have a real impact on people's life via insurance, which is important. It's meaningful. It feels very meaningful
Hmm.
what I do, what we do. So I truly appreciate that I can have this, successful, rewarding career where I have an impact versus just a job that I dread going to. I gotta bring this story full circle though. I
Sure.
see
Okay.
you're ready to say something. So back to beating my father at passing that actual exam.
Hmm.
Uh, my father was not upset when I beat him, in quotes, by passing. I was so excited to tell him and to say that I did something you couldn't do and kind of rub his face in it a bit. And he just couldn't stop telling everybody he knew. And I mean, he tells complete strangers. It's hilarious. He literally will go up to someone and say, "Hey, this is my daughter. She's an actuary." And I'm sitting there going, "I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. You're a stranger." And then he starts explaining why it's a big deal and why I'm so smart. Um, so it's really sweet, but he's very proud. And in the end, it worked out. It worked
Sure.
out well for both of us. So
Well, it did, but yeah, that's a great story. Though you aren't alone, I do want to say, in beating an odd path to becoming an actuary. The incoming president of the Academy, Lisa Slotsnik, I think studied classics at university
oh
um,
wow.
before she became an actuary. She's also a casualty actuary, so maybe that's one of those things for casualty actuaries. We'll take
Well,
a,
there's
a, a
there's interesting pathways though. There's lots of people. They go teaching. They do other things. But I just talked to somebody today, and I can't think of what the major is called, but he basically is a composer for a while. And I've
oh
actually met a few actuaries that were composers. And
yeah.
you think there is a connection in the brain and how,
Hmm.
math and music.
Certainly. Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds great. Well, thank you for sharing all that. And that certainly is sounds like you and your dad have a wonderful relationship, which sets you out on a great path.
Yeah.
Um, well, now I want to talk to you about what you mentioned, a woman becoming an actuary and being good at business and creative problem solving, which are all things that many actuaries talk about, that they do make an impact. And you mentioned in your introduction also your expansive, I want to say, volunteer record.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's talk a little bit about the network of actuarial women and allies.
Yeah.
What your goal is, why you were set up, and what you. Yeah, well, let's start with that, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah, I'll start, 'cause this is a long journey as well. I will start by explaining what NAWA, the Network of Actuarial Women and Allies, is, or what was your version?
National Association of Women Actuaries.
I think it works still. Um, our mission at NAWA is to connect and empower women of all backgrounds, races, ethnicities, and life circumstances to be successful in the actuarial profession. Um, I know I said you can call it what you want, but I think that last word,
Yeah.
allies, is very important because we recognize that allies play such an important role in the success of our mission and women. And it's crucial to us that those allies are present and they feel welcome and they're an active part of the conversations that NAWA is having. And so that's why we have it in the name. And
Hmm.
active allyship has been a focus of a lot that's coming from us. So, with that, a little bit more about us. We aim to accomplish our mission through three foundational principles. We've shared this at so many meetings, so it's probably repetitive to some people, but we want to increase the equity and representation of women in the actuarial profession in all aspects, entry level, leadership positions. We want thought leaders, presentations, everything. And we want to create a sense of community amongst women across sectors, specialties, and walks of life. And the last thing we want to do too is provide opportunities for personal and professional development tailored for those women and the allies. So everything we do, it's essentially our intent that our initiatives, our programs, our sessions, anything that comes from NAWA is going to support one of these principles and ultimately our mission. But I I'm going to talk a little bit about how it got started because I think
Hmm.
that's interesting. That's kind of been my journey. One that I have to say I am still in awe of and amazed every day at the direction we're headed and how far we've come. Because it feels like it's been a long time we've been working on this, but it hasn't. It's just going quick and so much is happening. Um, so I co-founded the Network of Actuarial Women and Allies with Sandy Lowe,
Hmm.
an FCS at Liberty, and Adrienne Lieberthal. It used to be Ostroff, but she was recently married, so a new last name there. She's an FSA and she's the owner of Athena Actuarial Consulting. The three of us were introduced to each other in the spring of 2021 by a mutual friend. And that's, I would say, when things really got kicked off. So we met, we had this great discussion about the need for a women's diversity network and how we couldn't believe this didn't actually exist already. I mean, that was one of the more shocking things, that how is this not around? A lot of companies will have their own affinity diversity networks, in their in their company, but
Hmm.
how do we have nothing for the field or the industry? And from there, our conversations, we started to form a vision. What I found interesting though was that all of us had different stories. We had different experiences and responses to why we actually felt like it was needed. So I gave my reason, Sandy gave her reason, Adrienne gave her reason. We all had different reasons why we wanted NAWA. And I think that's great because we bring in that perspective. For me and my personal journey, it really was working in various states, countries, teams, and jobs. I mentioned I had quite a few and I've moved around. All of that really allowed me to analyze and grasp how different one's experience can be based on that team, right? Based on the diversity in people and thought that you're surrounded by. And in some of those situations, I found myself being what I want to put quotes around. I know you can't see the quotes, but I found myself being the only, right? As in the only woman at the table. And that could be isolating. But with that, I've also been on teams where I am surrounded by so much diversity. And I've seen how successful that could be for the team and the results that we produce. And it really does make all the difference when you have that. Because when you have diversity in people and thought, and that's more prevalent and appreciated, you feel accepted as the individual. You feel empowered. You grow, you add value, and you're much happier. It's really what everyone deserves, obviously. And my hope, going back to NAWA, was that this group could help achieve some of that. But regardless of my personal reasons and Adrian's and Sandy's reasons, the stats alone continue to highlight one of the major reasons we needed this group. Big picture across many of our organizations, not everybody, but only about a third of the members are female. And when you look towards the external benchmarks, STEM and actuarial majors and business majors, there's tons of majors that could apply to this. We could be doing better. And all of that scratches the surface, because I think I might have alluded to this, but when you look at who's chairing committees for the societies, when you look at who's presenting at conferences, and I would say, David, don't even get me started on the lack of representation on technical presentations.
Mm-hmm.
It's just essentially women continue to be underrepresented in the field and underrepresented in the right place. So back to that journey with NAWA then, after months of preparing and one-off speaking arrangements, we started to get our name out there. People were asking us to come talk at their company and whatnot. We had our official launch in October 2021. We had a kickoff meeting, and it had a panel back to allyship on, it was called Active Allyship and Why It's Important for an Inclusive Workplace. We had nearly 400 people registered for that event.
Wow.
I think we hit around 300. And there were participants from over 20 countries, over 30 states, and representation from over 60 companies. So it was very popular. It was great.
That's a very impressive kickoff. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, it was. And there was such wonderful engagement too, and feedback from the community. So it wasn't just silence. We let the conversation happen. We asked for feedback. We asked people, what do you want to see from NAWA? And that helped us, continue to form the vision of what we're doing. So since then, we continue to grow, and we now have over, I think it's around, it changes. So about a month and a half ago, I think we were at 800 members, and we just had 2,000 followers on LinkedIn, and all these people are from all around the world. So it's really great. I could tell you a little bit about, I think, the direction we're going, if you're interested.
Yeah, well, I just want to say one thing, because I was looking at your website. Now, it struck me as the website of a very established organization. I'm blown away that you're 18 months old, so give or take. And the idea came, let's say, 2 years ago, because you look at the resources you have for people who want to start up groups in their organization or who are interested in getting involved. It struck me as I don't want to say settled, but it struck me as being a developed organization. So that's, well, it speaks obviously to the commitment of the people you have working as allies and members and so on and so forth, because I know that developing resources takes time. And also the need for what you're doing, because the one thing that struck me was that over 2 decades there was a significant increase in the number of women, and then I think you said the last decade or so it's been stuck pretty much solidly at 30, 31, 2%.
Yes, it's been stagnant.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to the point you made, you look at any university program, and more programs are having a majority of women as students and graduating students. So there's clearly ample room for growth again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, 100%. And thank you for bringing up that stat 'cause I didn't mention it, but the numbers have been stagnant,
Hmm.
and I that's one of the alarming things we've seen. So, but you hit it exactly correctly. It's all the volunteers. So the energy, not just from that one event, continued after that event. We asked for volunteers following that late 21 event, and we formed what we call our impact committees. And these are groups of volunteers, and they have just made. I'd say there's about 40 volunteers. They have helped us make incredible progress towards building that initial infrastructure, that has helped us and is going to continue to help us address some of those foundational principles of who we are, talking about impacting not just the talent pipeline as they enter, but how do we get more women in that leadership pipeline too. And um, but I will say, what made us successful our first year, that was weighted very heavily on
Hmm.
very tactical side of things. So there was obviously some planning, but a lot of it, what made us successful was being very quick to respond to opportunities, being very quick to get things started up. And this past February, the board met and we embarked on a 2 day journey together in person. We went to New York and met and had some office space there that was lent to us. And we had the aim to think more strategic. So basically, we recognize that what made us successful in our first year, our ability to react, develop, and move quickly, is not what's going to make us successful in the future. And we want to recommit and refocus on what it is that we want to achieve. You're really focusing on where do we want to be in 10 years? Where do we want those, you know, the the numbers, that all of this, what do we want that to look like in 10 years? What does that need to look like in 5 years? And where do we need to be in a year from now to get there? So we want to be very mindful, very thoughtful about how we're approaching this. And we are actually in the process of sharing the results and direction with our impact committees right now. So it's a really exciting time because I
Hmm.
think just refocusing us and getting us, making sure that that energy doesn't fizzle out and burn out, and that we start losing people, because it was strong, and that can disappear quickly. So I want to make sure people keep moving forward. But I think all of us are very hopeful about the future and impact we can have. It's going to take time, but we're doing the right things. And yeah, you mentioned the website. So if anybody wants to learn more about NAWA, come find us on LinkedIn, online at nawaactuaries.org, and you can sign up to be a member. It's free. And you can volunteer. You can get our newsletter, and we have lots of things coming up. I actually don't even know all the events sometimes that are coming up. We meet as a board and we make sure we go through what the calendar is, but sometimes I'm like, oh, we're doing that. That sounds great, because we have so much volunteers and they're just enabled to move things forward and get things done, and it's wonderful. Um, but okay, so I'll close on that. But it all started with one meeting, and I think
Right.
that was the most exciting thing. And it's just the journey has been so incredible for me, and I hope others. And I'm really grateful for that introduction that somebody made, and
Hmm.
what came out of it. And it has now become bigger than those three individuals, and it's just an incredible part to be incredible thing to be a part of. I can't imagine that one day, leaving, board terms end and everything.
All
I'd
right.
still be a
Okay.
volunteer, but being a part of forming this organization and then kind of walking away, it's like it's your baby, and then that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's my baby.
Yes. I know. I'm on a board. It's for a theater, a local theater in Washington D.C.
Oh, nice.
And it was founded less than 10 years ago, and there was a maximum of a 9-year term on the board. And they were looking around the room and said, "Oh, hang on, the majority of the board had joined, 8 or 9 years ago. We're almost all going
Oh,
to leave. That can't happen." So they had to amend the bylaws briefly to say, "Okay, we can serve for 12 years, but we got to do some more. We got to do some more recruitment and get new blood in." And I don't know what your bylaws are, but certainly that turnover has to be managed very carefully,
yep,
because you do not want to lose institutional memory and energy. As you
yes,
say, it's your baby, or your collective baby, and you are required to be a steward of its future as well as of its current format. You are listening to Actuary Voices, a podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. You can subscribe to this podcast on your preferred listening platform. I just want to share a story. It perhaps should have gone somewhere else, but a former president of the Academy, Mary D. Miller, shared a story with us about why she became an actuary. And she was in high school and she was handed a leaflet about an actuary, and this is quite a while ago.
Wow.
But the phrase on the front cover was "an excellent career for a man."
Oh my
And
goodness.
she was motivated to become an actuary because she said, "I was better at math than all the men in my class."
So she had that competitive spirit too. She
she
said,
did,
I'm gonna
yes.
show this pamphlet.
Yes. She sadly is no longer with us, but there is a short video. I'll send you a link afterwards
Yeah,
of her talking about that.
that's great.
I certainly want to wish you the best of luck with NAWA. It sounds like it's in excellent hands currently. And with all the volunteers and the impact committees that you have working, it sounds like it'll be in great hands for the future as well.
Thank you.
And I will repeat your plug about your website and signing up for membership towards the end of this podcast
Much appreciated.
as well.
Yes,
Of course.
thank you.
I'd like to go back to you personally now. You mentioned at the beginning that you make an impact as an actuary. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not a pen pushing job by any means.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering if you'd like to share with us what you specifically find fulfilling about it.
Yeah. So I'm going to start by explaining what an actuary does for those who are unfamiliar. But actuaries use advanced analytical skills to help organizations plan for and understand loss. We are experts at assessing and evaluating risk. And so here's my plug, right? You can find more about being an actuary at beingactuary.org. But I will say there's all kinds of actuaries, and that skill set can be applied anywhere where there's risk. So in regards to my career, I've had many roles over nearly 20 years, mainly at my current company, Travelers, but I have worked elsewhere. I think I've had about 8 roles in different areas across my company. But what I really appreciate is that within our field, within my company in general, there's just this true embracement of having a growth mindset, which has allowed me to move around and build out my experience. So in thinking of those next roles, I'm typically focusing on the balance between developing myself with adding value to the company. And in my career, I feel like I'm constantly being challenged and developed to become a better business leader. So right now, I will get to social impact. Right now, I run the actuarial team for our enterprise CAT group I mentioned already. And that's a very, I'd say, non-traditional actuarial role, but it still requires a strong background in traditional roles. Essentially, my group is focused on ensuring that my organization has an adequate view at all times of catastrophe risk across the company, and think tornado, hail, winter storm, hurricane, earthquake, wildfire, flood, all of that. It's a big deal. And my team's also responsible for how we rate this and what the products look like when it comes to these perils. And I think this is very important. I find real meaning in what my group does. I essentially see us as champions and protectors of the solvency of the company. And on top of that, I'm very lucky to be in a group where our non-actuarial leader, he doesn't see us by our titles or credentials. He sees us as problem solvers. He often says, take off your actuarial hat. He just allows us often, I would say, rather maybe encourages us to think outside of the box. But really, I'd say the sky is the limit as to what we do day to day as actuaries. But I am happy to say it's one where in all of my roles, I feel like I have a positive impact that myself and my team can have on the company. And it's not just the company, right? It's the industry and it's our customers, and it's meaningful and important.
Well, we're getting towards the end of our time together, Amber, but I am always interested in what visitors to the podcast see about the challenges and opportunities that the profession as a whole faces
Oh,
in the
yeah.
coming period?
Yeah, I think this is so relevant, so I'm glad you asked it, David. Uh, Something I think all actuaries passionately, I think we all need to be actively thinking about more than ever is how do we make our field sexy? Put that in quotes. Or how do we appeal to the younger generation might be the more PC way of saying it. Um, let's see, it really should be no surprise, I think, to many of us. And if it is, I suggest you should learn more about it and you can reach out and discuss this with other actuaries. But we have a bit of a crisis going on. There are so many, I'll call them trendy fields to go into now, fields that are very topical and you hear a lot about. Maybe we need a movie or something with a famous actor being an actor. Oh, we have those. Well, we need one painted in better light. We need I don't know, we need some famous, good looking actor playing the actuary. Anyway, the fields are very topical and you hear a lot about them. These are the ones that are getting the attention and are heavily recruiting from the STEM majors, which is a loss to the current and future talent pipeline for our field. Students, for example, they're looking at forensics, they're looking at cybersecurity, computer science, engineering, criminal justice, artificial intelligence, of course, data science. I could go on. According to, I'm getting most of these from the 2017-2018 Barriers to Entry report. Are you familiar with that one?
I am not actually, no.
It's very good. I think you can find it on the CS website. I think you can probably find it on IABA's, SOA's, and the Actuarial Foundation, because I think they all were involved in producing that report. But they talk, and I'll send it to you, but they talk about a lot of this crisis that I'm talking about. And the drivers of this choosing other fields over actuarial science is sometimes that these fields are more well known, they're cool, and they're perceived as prestigious. So, in addition, reflecting on that study, they identified drivers of career decisions, and they found that for those in STEM majors, they're looking for areas where they could have a social impact. There's financial security. They're solving real world problems, among other things. But just pausing there, what shocks me about this every time I've read it, and I'm sure many would feel the same, is that I feel like our field is full of so much of this. I feel like I just described our field because we do solve real world problems and they do have a positive social impact on the community around us. But that perception or awareness just isn't as prevalent as it needs to be. And introducing the field or even some of those concepts in college is far too late. So anyway, I think we need to be doing more to get out there and make sure our profession is known early. And not just known, but refocusing our explanation and rebranding it a bit to show how sexy we are. So we don't just go and say, this is what reserving is, and this is how you do your pricing. It's maybe shifting that story and to talk more about that impact that we have. We do make a positive difference and we're solving those real life problems so that communities, businesses, and frankly, the economy can thrive. I really see the societies, I see companies, and I see these diversity networks, including NAWA, all really partnering together on this. And we are doing it to some extent, but it's something we need to continue to build on and have an impact. But even, grassroots movements, we all need to be doing our part to make sure we stay relevant in the future pipeline. So, the threat here really too is if we really put our value, that we add to insurance companies at risk, if our talent pipeline starts to diminish, it's key. And if we can't support the future need for actuaries, we're going to be replaced. So anyway, this is obviously something that's been on my mind and I talk a lot about, but I think there's a lot we can do there.
That's certainly a sobering thought, Amber.
Sorry, I don't want to leave
okay.
you on such a negative thought.
No, not at all. But
Doomsday.
not quite.
That'll be the name of the movie.
Oh, okay. The Day Without Actuaries.
Who will star in it? We have to figure this out. I wish I knew actors' names. Yeah.
Those two guys are one of them who does that Wrexham Football Club show on Hulu. Ryan Reynolds.
This is the one I was thinking of. He was in my
okay.
head. This needs
Yeah.
to be a movie with Ryan Reynolds.
Gotcha.
So here's what I'm proposing is all the societies we get together, we write a letter to Ryan Reynolds.
Fine.
We say we need your help. You have to solve this for us.
Okay, well, I'm going to go and see him in North Carolina this summer because he is playing in a football tournament, soccer tournament.
Oh my goodness. Well,
yes, so I've
you
got
might
tickets.
be our in. You may solve it all for us.
I'm probably not going to be the only person there trying to get Ryan's ears. So, Amber, is there anything you want to conclude with? We're coming very close to the end of our time together.
I know this has been so fun. I thought, how am I going to fill up all this time with you? But we've had a good time talking. I do. Well, first, obviously, I want to thank you. Thank you for thinking of me and asking me to join this podcast and to celebrate Women's History Month. I think it's so wonderful. But I'm going to share something. This is very vulnerable. This is difficult for me, especially running a women's organization. But for a while, I actually despised International Women's Day. I know.
Why was that?
I know. It's horrible, isn't it? There's the story. Yeah. So I lived in London for 5+ years and I loved it. We wanted to spend the rest of our lives there with my family and everything. Personally and professionally, it was just wonderfully rewarding. However, when we were going for a visa renewal, it was around Brexit. And so we learned that it wasn't in our cards and we were to head back to the States for new roles. The rug was essentially pulled out from under me and it was the end of what I thought my forever life was going to be. So I was peaking with happiness, and then boom, it all sort of disappeared overnight or actually over a meeting. So I actually left work in the middle of the day when that happened, like right after I was told, with a friend I worked with. We both, I still appreciate what she did for me that day. We went and cried over tea and a brownie and just sobbed. And then I received a text from daycare where my nearly 2-year-old daughter was holding a sign that said, "I am very proud of you, Mommy." It was Mummy because it's English or
Yes.
British. "You are my hero. Happy International Women's Day." It was International Women's Day.
Right.
And as much as that visa issue was not my fault,
Right.
I was not proud of myself. I was thinking I was a failure. I was thinking through ways if I had just done something or said something differently, that maybe I wouldn't have been in that situation. Maybe they would have seen the value in pushing for that visa. So it hit me hard. And unfortunately, I am annually reminded of that pain because on such an ironic day, right? So with that, I will say International Women's Day last year for me was very different. I felt the pain, which I always do, and it still hurts. But I also felt the joy for the work we're doing at NAWA. The volunteers, the members, the partners, the organizations, all of us. And it was a lot. It was a lot of emotions. I felt it and it was good, but it was challenging.
Sure.
And this year I found myself slightly sad, but it quickly faded. I'm learning to appreciate the day again, and I was more proud and happier on that day than I had been for a while. And I know it'll continue to get better, but it's still hard. I also know that NAWA would not have been here, though, had I not lived through those experiences. So it's always, all of us go through life storms and multiple life storms. This isn't the only one I've had and won't be the last, but it's hard when you're in the middle of that life storm to see the other side, right? But we come out of it, and those experiences make us better, they make us stronger, and they give us strength to push for more. So with that, I will say it's a wonderful day. It's a wonderful month. I don't want to leave it all negative. But we shouldn't limit our progress or our celebrations to just this time either. It really, we should take the time though this month to recognize all the hard work and progress that has been made by those that came before us and that we continue to build on. And back to NAWA, I hope NAWA and our field will really help to continue that progress so that we can all feel empowered to do our best at what we do every day.
Well, that's certainly an uplifting way to end, but it would be remiss of me as an Irishman or somebody who was born Irish not to note that I have similar feelings towards St. Patrick's Day.
Oh,
I call it National Stay-at-Home Day.
I've heard that before. I'm a plastic Irish, I've been told. I'm one of those, Americans that say I'm Irish,
yes,
and the true
you'd like
Irish
that
go,
pitying,
yeah, that's not Irish.
Amber, thank you so very much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
I was in conversation with Amber Rohde, co-founder and president of the Network of Actuarial Women and Allies. You can learn more about NAWA at NAWA Actuaries, that's NAWA Actuaries.org. And this is Actuary Voices, the podcast from the American Academy of Actuaries. I'm David Nolan, your host and the Academy's Director of Communications. Please subscribe to Actuary Voices on your preferred podcast platform.